What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, and look, on the back of the club rebrand, which we brought you early on today, I found this little article just hidden away inside the club rebrand, which I thought was quite interesting. It was the age-old kind of conversation about the term Yid Army, Yid, the Y word, and yeah, it's like they're bringing up the conversation once again. If you bring up the article, it says Y word, time to think about it. So I'll just read a few snippets from it, and then I guess we can have our say on it. And it says, we are living in times of heightened awareness of cultural appropriation and sensitivities. It is therefore crucial to the values of our club and our fans that we are more mindful of the controversial nature of the Y word. We have always recognized that this is a complex issue, and the appropriateness of the terms used should regularly be assessed. Our supporters' use of the Y word initially taken as a positive step to deflect anti-Semitic abuse that they were subjected to at matches more than 40 years ago from opposition fans who faced no sanctions for their actions. The term continues to be used up to the present day by some of our supporters. We have always maintained that our fans have never used it with any deliberate attempt to offend. Indeed, among the reasons some fans choose to continue to chant the term now is to show unity and support for the team, as well as each other, and a defense mechanism against anti-Semitic abuse that still exists, and also as a way to identify as a Spurs fan. Then they go on to say a bit further down, after going through a few fan consultations and focus groups, they're talking about moving forward. And they said, we pride ourselves on being inclusive and progressive club and are aware that of the growing cultural sensitivities globally. We have already seen several sports entities and franchises make appropriate changes to nicknames and aspects of their identities in recognition of evolving sentiment. As a club, we always strive to create a welcoming environment that embraces all our fans so that every one of our supporters can feel included in the matchday experience. It is clear the use of this term does not always make this possible, regardless of context and intention, and that there is a growing desire and acknowledgement from the supporters that the Y word should be used less or stop being used altogether. We recognise how these members of our fan bases feel, and we also believe it is time to move on from associating this term with our club. The adoption of the Y word by our supporters from the late 70s was a positive response to the lack of action taken by others around this issue. An increasing number of our fans now wish to see positive change again with the reduction of its use, something we welcome and shall look to support. We acknowledge that any reassessment of the use of this term needs to be a collaborative effort between the club and its fans. We shall be working to further outline the historical context of the term, to explain the offence it can cause, and to embrace the times in which we now live, to show why it can be considered inappropriate regardless of context. Whole lot of nonsense to me.
A lot of nonsense?
A lot of nonsense, man. I get that they're finally kind of stating why Spurs have used it. Like, how many times are we going to sit here and Spurs are saying, oh, we should stop it, we should stop it, we should stop it. How many endless campaigns has there been against this word over the course of the last 10 to 15 years? And this is actually the first time they've actually recognised why Spurs actually say it, which is a good thing, in my opinion. But, like, they need to stick by it. Like, Spurs still use it in the same way. Yes, fine, the meaning probably has moved on over the certain years, and it does. You know, Spurs still use it to combat anti-Semitism in one way or another. And if the campaign is towards Spurs fans to stop using the term, right, it's not going to stop opposition fans using it in a derogatory term against us, whether that's less than the 70s or more than the 70s. It's not the point. Like, they're still going to be using it as a term against us, and it's just stopping that defense mechanism as well.
Yeah, I think it should be acknowledged that there are people genuinely offended by it, and that's unfortunate, and obviously those people should be taken into account. But for me, if you understand the context of how it's being used. I think when all these conversations, it all comes down to context. Many words can be used derogatorily in a derogatory way in certain context, but the way Tottenham fans use the word, as you say, the history behind why the word was adopted, I don't understand why any Jew looking at we're two Jewish Spurs fans, and we grew up understanding that context of why the word was adopted. So that's maybe different to other people who are either new to it or just hear the word and don't, or maybe even casual fans who don't understand why this word is being said at the ground. And those people potentially would, casual fans who aren't as live and breathe the club like we do, maybe they go to the ground and they hear it and they don't really understand what's going on. So, and I can understand in those contexts why those people would take offense to the word being used. But if they were to ask and they were to learn why the word is being used at the ground, I don't understand why they would still take offense to the use of that word, because I think to use it as kind of a way to combat anti-Semitism, as like an anti-racism kind of adoption of the word, I think is kind of like a beautiful thing in a way. The way Tottenham fans use it. So I understand that there are people offended by it, but I don't understand why you would understand the context and still be offended by it, in my opinion. But maybe there people are, and that should be acknowledged, and that shouldn't just be brushed aside. But I also think if you look at when they did the fan consultation, and also they've done a load of focus group stuff, which is asking a lot of fans about it. And there are fans who say maybe we should, move away from it. But there's a lot of Jewish fans in the focus groups saying, I actually really appreciate the adoption of the word. There's even some Jewish fans who said if Tottenham stop fans from using the word, I'm going to stop coming. There was even one fan who said that. So I think it's not clear cut at all that a lot of Jewish fans find it offensive at all. If anything, look, we know a lot of Jewish Spurs fans. We're very much in that community. And I can't think of too many who find it offensive.
I can't think of one. Not one. And I know a hell of a lot of Jewish Spurs fans, grown up my whole life in the Jewish community, meeting Spurs fans on a regular basis, going to Spurs games a lot since I was 15 with Jewish fans my whole life. Not once have I come across a Spurs fan that has found this offensive. And on top of that, it's not even found it offensive. They all use it as a badge of honor. They all use it with a sense of pride, and as me and you do.
And isn't that a better way of moving when we're talking about being progressive and moving forward in terms of how we want to kind of adopt these ideas? Isn't it a better way to kind of let go of the offensive nature of that term and let it be reclaimed in a more positive way, so we can move forward in that direction? In a weird way, I feel like holding on to being offended by that word kind of gives it more power in that sense. And I feel like I think by allowing it to be used in this context, I think, in my opinion, would take away the power, will go in a direction of taking away the power from that word in a way. And I feel like I would rather the power gets taken away from that word rather than keep it like this word we can't say, and like this no-go, so that we keeps the power of that word in a weird way.
Yeah. And also I get really frustrated with these constant campaigns against Spurs fans to stop using the word when we know where the word originated from, and it's not going to stop opposition fans saying it. So why aren't these campaigns more directed at opposition fans rather than Spurs fans, when Spurs fans are the only ones using it in a positive manner?
Because I guess the claim is the fact that Tottenham fans are using it is encouraging away fans to use it. That would be the claim.
But it was kind of the opposite.
Well, that's why it was adopted. Correct. I guess I don't know what the theory is, but if I'm going to theorize in my head, I'm guessing what they're saying is Tottenham adopt it to combat anti-Semitism, and the anti-Semitism has now got to a point where the opposition fans no longer sing it, and the only perforation of the anti-Semitism is now Tottenham fans encouraging opposition fans to say that word, because they're the ones who keep saying the word. So that, I guess, and so their argument would be, if Tottenham fans would then stop saying the word, away fans would stop using it. I guess.
I think that's false.
That's
in my opinion, that's false. In my opinion, that's false. And I do feel like, obviously, I can't speak for all Jewish Spurs fans, and I can't speak for the people that are offended. But in my mind, I think you were spot on in what you were saying before. Is like I feel like the Jewish Spurs fans that are offended by it, or fans in general that are offended by it, are fans that don't know the meaning behind it and why it came about. Like I said before, like I've never come across a Spurs fan of any generation that is offended by it or that doesn't use it as a badge of honour and is not proud to go to an away game in the middle of nowhere or across Europe or in England, anywhere. That doesn't, stand there and shout it with pride. That's how I look at it, and that's when I first started going to Spurs and I first started learning about it. I mean, I loved every single bit about it. I think it's so important for me as a Spurs fan as well.
Yeah, that's how we feel. I would like to speak to Jewish Spurs fans who disagree with that opinion, with the understanding on the context to get why they would want it to be banned or why they would want Tottenham fans to stop using it, because I do want to hear that perspective. Maybe that's a perspective that I'm lacking in terms of moving forward from that situation. But I do want to, because from my point of view, I don't see why in the context that we use it, it would be an offensive thing, apart from just the fact that uttering those letters in any context is offensive. If that's your belief, then that's fair enough. I'm not going to argue with you, and that's just your belief. But if you think words are context dependent and you're only offended when there's depending on the context and you still think in this context it's offensive, I would like to hear that opinion.
And do people really think the people that start these campaigns and make these campaigns, in this case this article's put out from Tottenham and I do fully expect some sort of campaign off the back of it, do they really think that if Spurs fans just straight up stop using the Y word now, that we're still not going to be seen as like a club with a close connection to the Jewish community and Jewish heritage within the fan base? That's never going to happen.
I guess the argument some people would use is if Tottenham refer to themselves, as Yids, then why is it wrong for opposition fans to refer to them as the same term? And if it just means Tottenham fan and doesn't mean, the original meaning, then it becomes confusing for opposition fans, I guess, is the argument, because we're referring to ourselves as that. So why can't they refer to us as that?
But do you have a problem with other fans referring to Spurs fans as Yids, or do you have a problem when it gets nasty and derogatory, when it's just the word Yids with nothing else attached to it? Like if a Man U fan or an Arsenal fan or a Chelsea fan or whatever fan goes, oh, so you're a Yid then? Like,
that's fine, but but if they go, but let's be honest, the opposition fans, because they're opposition, they don't like us, so they would say, oh, those bloody whatever, right? And they might say the word Yid, but maybe they're just referring to Tottenham fans instead of Jews, but a lot of people would find that anti-Semitic.
That won't go away though if we just stop using the word. That just won't go away.
But does it encourage people to use that term to refer to Tottenham fans, and then not in a way encourage anti-Semitism, but it kind of blurs the line between anti-Semitism and just kind of being against Tottenham fans? Does it blur the line a bit?
Like I said, I don't think it does because of the origins of it. Like, I don't think it changes anything if Spurs stop, and if Spurs did stop, Spurs will probably have to adopt it again to combat anti-Semitism again. That's what's going to happen.
No, but my point is, rival fans might be, for example, rival fans who definitely don't live and breathe Tottenham won't understand the context of why we use that word, and they won't. Maybe some of them. I guess the point being is maybe these rival fans won't understand that it's an anti-Semitic term. Right, so they might call us that, not knowing it's anti-Semitic, and that can cause offence because they might use it in a slanderous way, not knowing that's anti-Semitic, and it kind of give them an excuse to use that word.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but it goes back to the origin, because they first using it because it was an anti-Semitic slur. That's why they first used it, because it wasn't because we were singing it about ourselves. That was the first reason it was brought in, because it was an anti-Semitic slur against us. So, of course, they knew what it meant at that time.
No, I'm saying now.
I think they would. Like, the majority should know and would know.
You would think so, but because, you know, as I'm saying, that the fans growing up will not know the context behind why Spurs fans call themselves that, and then they might grow up thinking, okay, they call themselves this, and then they might start to refer to that word in derogatory way, not knowing it's anti-Semitic, because that's just how we refer to ourselves, and it's not about, you know, religion and stuff. And that encourages the use of that word in derogatory way from rival fans.
I get what you're saying.
Not in an anti-Semitic way, but it would be anti-Semitic, and that would be offensive to a lot of Jewish people, even if rival fans are not intending it in an anti-Semitic way. I guess that would be the main argument.
Yeah. And what do you think about that argument?
I understand it. I think it's a good argument, but I also think, again, it's all context dependent, and I think just because we use it in a positive way and someone uses it in a derogatory way doesn't give them an excuse. And if they do use it in a derogatory way, then that is a time for them to learn about why you shouldn't use that term in a derogatory way. Just like in any term that, you know, when you're using it in a derogatory way that's offensive to people, right? They should learn the context, and it's all about learning the context of the situation. So I wouldn't say that's a good excuse to get Tottenham fans to stop seeing it just because of what rival fans might do. We're not responsible for what rival fans do and what rival fans say. That's what I would say to that argument. But, you know, other people might think differently.
Yeah, but exactly the reasons that you've just been given, that is why the campaigns should be on the other side and not the Spurs side. The Spurs side always have used it in a positive way, in an endearing way, in a loving way, and standing behind the Jewish people of this football club that were, you know, subject to anti-Semitic abuse, and particularly in this day and age when anti-Semitism is very much on the forefront of a lot of things around the world at the moment. And I think it's been flared up, and I think it's an important thing still to stand by the Jewish community of this football club. And if anyone should learn about anti-Semitism, it shouldn't be the Spurs fans, it should be anyone else using it in a derogatory way.
Exactly, because we embrace our Jewish fans, and that's with that. Historically, we've always done that. We still do that to this day, and I think taking away a positive element from that is not the way going about combating anti-Semitism when there's very real anti-Semitism right now, as you say. Like,
exactly.
And I think this is not what we should be combating. This is not the answer. So, in a perfect world, Tottenham, you know, wouldn't have needed to adopt the word. But unfortunately, we live in a world where we did need to do that. And I think taking away from that history is not the pathway forward to eliminating anti-Semitism.
Exactly. Do you want to go through some of the focus group results?
I mean, this is the old stuff. So this is from 2019. Look, I do implore everyone to go read this. Go to this page, which is part of the Tottenham rebranding stuff, and there's 3 focus group things here, and there's a variety of really interesting opinions on it. There's a lot of opinions on it. I would say I've been through a lot of them, and I would say majority, in my opinion, are still in favour of using it, as they've lost a mix of non-Jewish and Jewish fans. I think majority of people they've asked are Jewish, and we can't go. Look, there's too many to go through them all now, but I would say, if you do have time and you want to know a variety of opinions, do go and check out these 3 focus groups and their opinions, because there's a lot to learn from what people are saying. But it's interesting to know I've gone through a lot of them, and I think majority is definitely in favour of continuing to use the word, but there definitely are people who say, you know, think in a different way. But what's interesting is if you do look at the results from back in 2019, and you look at, you know, fans who there's a graph of the age of fans chanting the Y word in a footballing context, age band, people do it and people who don't. The vast majority of people who say they don't are over 65, and if you're under 65, then it drops automatically to 34%. And then what's very interesting is the younger generation, who you think are more sensitive to these things, you know, they're the ones who are seeing it the most, 64%. So in a weird way, we do seem to be moving, well, Spurs fans in general, in terms of clearly people who grew up a certain generation found it a lot more offensive because of how it was used against them when they were growing up. But that is being looks like it's being like kind of withered or watered down with future generations. And in my opinion, I would rather a word had been used derogatory be reclaimed in a more positive way. I'd
So
rather
does that graph show that what the Spurs fans have been doing since the 70s is working then?
well, what it's saying is that Tottenham fans of a younger generation are using the word in football more than the older generation.
But I'm saying like people are less offended by it though.
Correct,
And
less offended.
And that's what the goal was, like to combat anti-Semitism, not to get less offended by it, but to reclaim it much more.
Yeah, and it seems like the younger generation embraced the word a lot more than the older generation. Which I think is a positive direction in my opinion, and I'd rather in 20 years time or whatever 30 years time we're not living in a world where we're cowering from this word and we're scared of it, and we can embrace it in a positive way.
So what you're telling me is through this rebrand that the club have done today, not only have they taken Tottenham Hotspur out of the logo, but they're also trying to take away our Yid Army as well.
They try to stop us, but look what it did.
Big almost is being a Yid. Yeah, but look, the reality is this word is so ingrained within the fan base. It's just so ingrained. You hear it every single game, home, away, particularly at away games, particularly with, the fans that go week in, week out. Plenty of songs uses it in terms of endearment for new players, players that have done something good. You know what I mean? Like, it's so ingrained within this fan base. I don't think there's anything that the club can do or any campaign can do to get us to stop singing it.
At the end of the day, you're talking with football fans. They're not the most nuanced bunch. So I don't think they're going to be having nuanced conversations in the stands about people being offended or not offended, or all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, it's a word that's been used now for, what, half a century at this point, right? 1970s, that's 50 years. That's half a century. So there's going to be, it's not going to go away. Essentially, if you've been using it for that long and it's that ingrained, it's going to be very difficult for Tottenham to just get rid of it. And I understand, I think from a club point of view, if I'm just getting in their heads from a branding point of view and all this kind of stuff, it probably is a headache they don't want. And I understand that they probably would rather the fans stop using it because it's an issue that keeps always cropping up every now and again. And it's something that, that you will always get Jewish fans out there who just don't like the use of the word because of its historical context in a derogatory term. And it's a headache that the club could just do without. But at the end of the day, the club doesn't belong to, the club belongs to them, but the club belongs to the fans. At the end of the day, we're the lifeblood of the club, and they can't just stop us from singing things which have historical context and deep meaning, which mean a lot to the fans. And as much as the board members, probably won't like it, it's not going to stop the fans.
Exactly. So keep trying to stop us, people. That's us, two Jewish Spurs fans. That's how we feel about the Y word. We do understand that there are maybe certain people that do get offended by it, but I do think the vast majority of Jewish Spurs fans are completely behind it. That's how I firmly believe. But look, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. That's just our 2 cents on the matter.
I don't want to say, if there are fans out there who, knowing the concept, still think it's really offensive and it's wrong for Spurs fans to sing it, I want to hear from you. I know, and do get in contact, and I'm happy to have a conversation because I think it should be an open dialogue.
Yeah. All right, well, there you have it. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.